Bonelab is one of the most hyped VR games of all time. But how good is it really? And what are things that you should know before you play this game? So with that said, make sure you completely destroy that like button on your way in. And let's dive right into it. Bonelab is the long-awaited sequel to the 2019 hits called Boneworks. As one of the most wanted VR releases of this year, it has some pretty big things to live up to. But now, 3 years later, Bonelab carries its own legacy forward, not only on PCVR, but also on the Quest 2, which for the first time brings his whole franchise to a new player base. And the developers, called Stress Level Zero, have tried to enhance this version as much as possible. And throughout this review, I will try to keep it spoiler free, with the gameplay on screen that were only showed off in their release and launch trailers. So let's get started at the beginning. Like mentioned before, this game will be playable on both PCVR as well as the Quest 2. And while it is already out right now, it will come in at a price of $39. And for the people that haven't played Boneworks before, these games are fully based on a physics-based system, giving all items a real sense of weight, while at the same time making the player be able to interact with anything around them. And that is why most players advise you to physically imagine that you're holding a heavy object, which directly gives a way more realistic feeling. And this core idea is exactly what the Marrow 1 engine from Stress Level Zero is trying to achieve. But that doesn't mean that this game is for everybody, because while many people enjoyed and loved Boneworks, it is overall a very different game than anything out there on the market. And there are also some major changes in this new game, which first and foremost is the new overall structure. Because when opening the game for the first time, you will directly start with the main campaign, but after about 15 minutes in, you will be introduced to a new hub, which is also known as the lab. And this is exactly when you will start to realize how this game is meant to be played, with the campaign just being one piece of the puzzle. Now this section that is called the lab is almost like a save point that you can always come back to, not only throughout your campaign, but at any given moment, because the lab itself features a range of mini games, but also game modes and other activities to explore. Think about the sandbox environment, or wave shooters and time trials, but even parkour courses, bowling, and much more.
Yeah, boy.
But after playing around in the lab, you can choose to move on with the campaign again. And while progressing through it, you will unlock more modes and levels that you can come back to later. And much like Boneworks, the Bonelab's campaign is a mix of puzzle platformers and shooters at the same time, which encourage you to find unique ways to get from point A to point B. And of course, throughout the game, you will come across a lot of different types of weapons, some even more crazier than the other one, so that you can experiment till your heart's content. And that is exactly where most fun of this game's come from, pure experimentation, allowing you to tackle these objectives in any way you see fit. And that means that the more creative you are, the more fun you will have as well. But while this almost sounds perfect, there is also a flip side, because this physics system can also be incredibly frustrating at times. For example, when climbing ladders or trying to grab ammo, sometimes there will be glitches or body parts getting caught and acting out of place. And although this is not necessarily game breaking, when you are being surrounded by loads of enemies, it can definitely be frustrating. Another big feature from Bonelab is the all-new avatar system, which lets you embody a variety of characters, with each of them having unique abilities, from a higher speed level to more strength. But best of all is that these characters are not all at your disposal from the beginning, and you will have to unlock them in a series of world-featuring minigames, which are exactly designed around an avatar's given strength or weakness. So these can go from a parkour course for the speedy avatar to a punch-em-up minigame for the one with super strength. With the cool thing being that once all these avatars are unlocked, that you can change between them at any given time. So for the rest of the campaign, switching between them becomes a new tool to solve these puzzles. And there are some circumstances where you will need a specific avatar to achieve your goal, but in others, you might just switch in whatever you feel like. But besides the mechanics and the new gameplay, there is also the storyline of Bonelab. And although I've been high on praise on everything so far, in terms of narrative, Bonelab's story is very thin. And while the campaign is definitely a continuation of the base that Boneworks laid down, it won't give you many more answers, if not more questions that you already got from the previous game. Because while you explore these abandoned research facilities, it is way more focused on the gameplay itself than telling you you a story. So much like Boneworks, it feels like the campaign is an added addition, with their main focus being on post-game content like the sandbox toolset and different game modes. And one major point that we shouldn't forget is the addition of mods. With at launch, we'll support importing your custom avatars to use in your game, even getting automatically assigned stats like strength and speed based on the avatar silhouette. And we can expect a lot more mod support in the near future, with plans that support custom items, vehicles, and much more. But while Bonelab and Boneworks have such a rich game world, it is something to keep in mind if you are looking for a story-based game, because in that case, it might not be worth it. But when you love the gameplay and physics engine of Boneworks, then I am sure that you will love this game as well, because probably one of the most asked and important things is the performance on Quest 2. Overall, it is a huge achievement that Stress Level 0 managed to get such an ambitious release running on a standalone headset, especially considering that the graphics on the Quest 2 are not that much of a downgrade compared to PCVR at all. But sadly, it did take some hits on other aspects, because while playing this game on your Quest 2, you might experience some frequent stuttering. This can include frame drops and many moments where your headset could just struggle to keep up. Some people even experience complete game crashes or automatic reboots where the game had to restart over in order to progress.
Thousands of tears later.
Despite this, the game still looks very decent on the standalone hardware, and given the circumstances, it is still an impressive feat. But another aspect, and very important thing before buying this game, is the comfort of gameplay, because Bonelab is an incredibly intense experience. All the movement in the game is handled through smooth locomotion using the thumbstick. This also means that comfort options are incredibly limited, meaning there is no teleportation or other movements available. Plus, you will also have a lot of forms of artificial movements, such as launching off of hydraulic pads to falling down a big hole or riding a fast-moving minecart. Adding in the frame drops and performance issues, this could induce some big nausea and motion sickness for a lot of players. So it is definitely not recommended for people that are completely new to VR. But that gets us to the final conclusion. Bonelab is sure one of the most hyped and interesting VR games to launch this year. And for both new as well as returning players, there is a campaign story with both fun and new interesting mechanics. However, the storyline itself is not very strong, with more focus on the gameplay itself and the different game modes in the post-campaign. On top of that, you might experience some performance issues when playing on the Quest 2, and you should definitely wait it out if you are very prone to motion sickness or if you're completely new to VR. But all those things aside, if you enjoyed and loved Boneworks, or you really enjoy a realistic physics-based system with mod support and a huge amount of different game modes, then this game is definitely for you.